My wife and I have gone through multiple experiences over the past few years where we've learned lessons the hard way. We're also reflecting on some other life events that we have gone through since we got married and realized we could have learned some of these lessons much earlier. In Proverbs 4 verse 7 it says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." So God wants us to focus on getting wisdom, not just knowledge, because knowledge puffeth up. So Proverbs 24:3. Through wisdom is an house builded, and by understanding it is established. This again mentions wisdom, but also talks about understanding. In the Hebrew here, when it's talking about understanding, is describing empathy. Without empathy and kindness, my house and your house will not be established. Where is this the most important? With our wives and children. I came across a quote from a periodical from 1895 that said, "Parents are standing in the place of God to their children. When they are entrusted with children, it is the same as though Christ placed them in their arms and said, 'Train these children for me, that they may shine in the courts of God.' Let parents maintain a vital connection with God, set themselves on Christ's side, and show by His grace what great good may be accomplished through parental agency." Proverbs 9 verse 8 says, "Rebuke a wise man and he will love thee." Notice here how a wise man is grateful for the rebuke. In most of our lives, we aren't typically rebuked by friends, not typically by coworkers or bosses, sometimes perhaps, but most often we are rebuked by our wives and children. There is something very important here. First of all, we cannot forget that whenever our wives or our children rebuke us, it is because they care so much about us. If they didn't care, they wouldn't even bother saying anything to us at all. We also can't pick exactly how these rebukes come. They can come in an emotional outburst, in some painful words said to us, but we have to be grateful for that rebuke no matter what. And that can be hard as a husband and father to be grateful for that rebuke, but that is what God is calling us to. So what is the most important thing in successful parenting? It is having the hearts of our children. In Proverbs 23 verse 26, "My son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways." And keeping the hearts of my children means I must be willing to hear those rebukes, however they might come. A good way to evaluate how I am doing on having the hearts of my children and future grandchildren is whether my children and future grandchildren would want to spend time with me over almost anyone else, or if they can't wait to get away from me. Remember that the original biblical meaning of patriarch is a bearer of hope. There is always hope. Are you, as a husband and father, am I, as a husband and father, bringing that message of hope and encouragement to the family circle? If you are in the situation where your children can't wait to be away from you, there is hope because God designed that children desire to have a relationship with their parents. I will talk about this more in a future video, so stay with us as we continue this series. If we have the Spirit of Christ, our children and grandchildren will want to spend time with us. One particular area where I have been tested the past few years is with friends. Am I willing to put my children before any friendships? Is there a friend or friends that I have let into the family circle that my children are uncomfortable with? I have learned that I must protect the family circle at all costs. One example in the Bible of an unwise and detrimental friend was Joab. Now Joab and his two brothers were warriors with King David. Joab became the general of David's army because he was the first to climb the water shaft and engage with fighting the Jebusites at the city of Jebus, which became Jerusalem. We're going to focus on one particular part of Joab's life and how that impacted David and his children. And then we'll cover some more parts of Joab's influence in David's life. The first event that's significant in this story is when Absalom's sister Tamar is raped by their half-brother Amnon. Absalom is very angry, as you would expect, because David doesn't do anything about this situation because of his guilt with his relationship with Bathsheba. So after several years, Absalom throws a party and engineers the whole party so that he can kill Amnon. After this, Absalom runs away to exile. After a period of time goes by, Joab realizes that David really wants to have a relationship with Absalom and starts to work things out to accomplish this. Joab becomes the middleman and eventually succeeds in bringing Absalom back to Jerusalem. But David still does not restore a relationship with Absalom like he should. And so, as some time goes by, Absalom ends up staging a coup against his father David. Prior to this coup, David should have been talking to Absalom, but instead was talking to Joab, and then Joab would go and talk to Absalom. That was a big mistake for David. So David has to flee from Jerusalem and ends up in a situation where his men are in battle with Absalom's forces out in the wilderness. So Absalom's hair gets caught in a tree, and he's hanging there when Joab is told of the situation. Joab immediately gets 3 darts or arrows and shoots them into the heart of Absalom, and then, along with 10 younger men, kills Absalom and hacks his body up. This is in direct violation of David's request to deal gently with Absalom, and to not hurt him. That whole story is found in 2 Samuel 18, especially in verses 12, 13, and 14. So David kept Joab around, and Joab ultimately ended up bringing Absalom back to Jerusalem. But when Absalom showed treachery toward his father, Joab kills Absalom in express disobedience of David's request. Looking back at Joab's life, did David have warning signs that Joab would not be a good friend and a good influence on him? Yes, he did. Shortly after Saul died in battle against the Philistines, Abner sought to bring all of Israel under David as king, seeing how God was leading in David's life. But Joab held a grudge against Abner because Abner had killed Asahel, Joab's brother. So because of this, Joab pretended to be a friend to Abner and stabbed him underneath the 5th rib. Joab also assisted and was an accomplice in the murder of Uriah the Hittite, Bathsheba's husband. Joab does not sound like the kind of friend any of us should have. Then, during Absalom's rebellion, Absalom places Amasa as the head of the army over Joab. And again, at the first opportunity, Joab pretends to be a friend to Amasa and once again stabs him under the 5th rib. We see in 2 Samuel 20, 9 and 10, "And Joab said to Amasa, Art thou in health, my brother? And Joab took Amasa by the beard with the right hand to kiss him. But Amasa took no heed to the sword that was in Joab's hand. So he smote him therewith in the 5th rib, and shed out his bowels to the ground, and struck him not again, and he died." Joab again had viciously killed another potential rival. Ultimately, when David was near death, Joab once again was treacherous and supported the crowning of Adonijah as king. David had not indicated that Adonijah would be king, but had indicated that Solomon would be king. With some quick thinking on Bathsheba's part, this disaster was averted, but Joab had been disloyal once again. And it's interesting, at the end of his life, David realized the danger, but realized it too late. So he told Solomon in 1 Kings 2, 5, and 6, "Moreover, thou knowest also what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, and what he did to the 2 captains of the host of Israel, unto Abner the son of Ner, and unto Amasa the son of Jether, whom he slew, and shed the blood of war in peace, and put the blood of war upon his girdle that was about his loins, and in his shoes that were on his feet. Do therefore according to thy wisdom, and let not his hoar head go down to the grave in peace." Ultimately, after the rebellion and attempt to put Adonijah on the throne, Joab is left in peace for a time being, but Adonijah makes a request that is treasonous, and Joab then runs to the horns of the altar, thinking maybe he'll be safe. But Solomon ultimately has Joab executed for his treachery. So how can I apply the story of Joab to my life? Nothing is more important than the relationship with my children. Do I have people that I have allowed into the family circle that speak negatively about my children or encourage me to speak negatively about my children? A godly friend will not be negative about my children or encourage me to be negative. Am I allowing people into the family circle who are trying to win the hearts of my children out from under me? Am I allowing people into the family circle who are attempting to parent my children in my place? Is there a Joab in my life or in your life that is distracting us from our number one responsibility? Remember from the last video, there is no friend, there is no ministry, there is no glory that is more important than our children. Our children and our grandchildren are our responsibility. In closing, I want to emphasize once again that our children and grandchildren are our most important responsibility. God ends the entire Old Testament in Malachi 4:6 with this promise. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Today we are seeing that curse throughout our land, and I do not want that curse in my family circle. Before Christ is born on this earth, he sends John the Baptist to be the messenger to prepare the way for his coming. This same promise is given to Zechariah, John's father, before John is even born. This same promise is in Luke 1:17. And he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to tune the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Both Malachi 4:6 and Luke 1:17 have a very special detail that is not there by accident. Did you notice that it says to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and then the children to the fathers? God wants the restoration to start with us as husbands and fathers. It is our responsibility first, before anything else. It must start with you and I. Are you willing to turn your heart to the hearts of your children first? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to humble yourself, to ask forgiveness for wrong attitudes, for wrong statements, for mean things that have been said, mean actions? Are you willing to do whatever it takes?